Hi, Zeve.
Hey, Zatt.
I got this Solina,
Nice.
and it is super awesome. It does what it does. It's a little bit
What does it
cheesy.
do?
Well, it's called a string ensemble, and so it says contrabass, cello, viola, violin, trumpet, and horn.
Okay.
Those are kind of the sounds that go in.
So you got like a string
And
quartet plus like a couple of other instruments that sound like they'd fit pretty well, right? Nice.
yeah. So we can hear it with the whole quartet. Let's see. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a pretty cheesy sound, but you add this modulation on it. It sounds a little more cool, and then it also has
Celestial
this
or something.
phaser, which is really wacky.
Yeah, it's neat. It's like super synthetic, but it also definitely rings like strings from the 80s or something like that, right? It's like I could
Right?
totally imagine this in like a disco song or something. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, disco era for sure. I think that so. This is Behringer's Solina String Ensemble, which of course is a remake of a classic piece of hardware, and the original Solina. I believe it was like the late 1960s, so it's like one of the first synthesizers. And so
wow.
what's cool and unique about the Solina is that you can do this. Uh, it has 49 voice polyphony, and that's because these other keys up here, they don't do anything, right?
So each key has its own oscillator, essentially.
That's right.
Oh
Yeah,
my
each key
gosh.
is an oscillator. And the way they did that is basically 12 basic oscillators,
Okay.
and then they use a frequency divider to get it down. Let's bring you over to my oscilloscope over here. Can you see that there?
Yeah, it
That's
kind of
the
looks almost like a narrow pulse, like a square narrow pulse, except there's like some overshoot on it.
yeah. It's kind of like this impulse with a saw in there almost, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. Sure. Yeah.
And then so that's the viola, and so the violin is almost the same sound, almost the same shape, but I think the it looks like the triangle wave's just a little bit higher. I don't know. This is an A, and I'm going to add the A that's an octave below. Sorry, it kind of dances around like that, but you can see that
Triggering.
those those peaks, or the anti peaks, whatever, that are going down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on one it's twice as big as the other, right? And so the point I'm trying to make here is that these oscillators are exactly synchronized, right? And
Interesting.
yeah, and so I think what happens is when you're playing these octaves, it saturates all of those times when all of those peaks hit. I have three octaves playing now, and so you see them going kind of way off the chart there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so this is the other thing I want to share. I've plugged this into my Juno now, and so I
Okay.
have my Juno doing a very short pulse width, right? So it's almost an impulse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if I add an octave below, you see we have three impulses there, one for the octave below, and one for the octave above, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not lining up exactly.
Yeah, they're
Kind of
out of phase.
oh, there we go. This is a B, and you see that half of the spikes are twice as tall, right?
Okay, and that's what we were seeing
And that's
with the
yeah,
Solina.
that's right. That's what we see with the Solina. I guess that's part of what makes it a really unique sound.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So with a lot of like unison, when you enable a unison on a synthesizer, what they'll do is they'll put one of the other oscillators slightly out of tune so that you have a phase shift, right? Or you could just phase shift one of the oscillators in reference to the first. So you could make you could stack many sounds without having it saturate the levels, right? So
Right.
so in the Solina, they're doing it differently. So you when you're playing these kind of octaves and things, you don't get that same kind of unison sound. You get something that's more unique,
Yeah, I think it's probably a thinner sound that
thinner.
you end
Yeah.
up with. Yeah, and so it allows it to kind of cut through the mix a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe let's listen a little bit more to the sounds themselves. The viola and the violin, we saw those waveforms earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and they looked very, very similar. And in fact, they sound pretty similar too. So here's the viola, and here's the violin.
Mm-hmm.
They nearly identical. But what you're not seeing because it's off camera is that they're tuned octaves apart, right? And so if I have to play if I play the viola up an octave and the violin down an octave, it's the same note. Another cool thing about the Solina is that we can mix all of them in. We can have any kind of combination of them, right? And so I can turn both the viola and the violin on, right? So now we have kind of the octaves. Actually, I want to show you the oscilloscope for the trumpet as well. I don't know if you can see this, but it kind of overshoots. It's like a sync function, right? It's down and then up, right?
Yeah,
Down, up,
it's
right?
hard to see that, but well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So the other one was more like a saw, and this is more like a ringing type of overshoot.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, ringing. That's a good way to describe it. The interesting thing, though, is that and this is an octave up, and so you see that of course, the spikes are twice as frequent,
Mm-hmm.
but that ringing is exactly the same frequency. So the ringing is so here it looks like there are about, I don't know, 6 or so rings per cycle,
Mm-hmm.
and here it's like 12. Right? The point being that ringing is not changing with the pitch of the note that you're actually trying to play. And I think that ringing is the same at all frequencies. And then we have this horn sound. When we have the horn sound, everything is much smoother. It looks to me like it's just maybe the fundamental plus a fifth or something like that, almost sine waves. So clearly they're doing something with some filter there. But I think that this is the basic waveform that it has. Oops, sorry, that was the trumpet with the viola. We have this one, the viola, and then this one, the trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
So those two waveforms are pretty much what the whole thing is built on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the horn, I think it's just applying some filter on top of it.
Do you think there's a keyboard tracking on that the horn filter?
Oh yeah, let's see.
If you
So
play a
here's a
really
high
low
note.
note. Okay.
And here's a really low note. It looks to me like, yes, it is keyboard tracking. I don't know. Actually, again, it looks like maybe that ringing is the same frequency. If I go down octaves at a time, oh wow, yeah. So this is the A 2 octaves below middle C.
Mm-hmm.
This is just below middle C. This is the 440. And so you notice that all the time that ringing is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost like the shape is the same. It's just when it starts repeating, is changing, right?
Right. So maybe that's the way they're doing the frequency dividing.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking about 1970s, 1980s technology, right? So it's not like a wave table, right?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading about electronic circuits for frequency dividing, and the simplest one is basically a flip flop. And so so you have your carrier frequency, right? And then on the rising edge, you basically trigger the flip flop. And so it'll be 1, 2, 1, 2. Sorry, the circuit that Boss uses, you copy the signal and you invert one of them, right? And you leave one of them face up. The one that's face up, you translate up by adding some voltage, and the one that you flipped, you subtract some. And then what you do is, when your flip flop is up, you use the original signal plus something, and then when the flip flop is down, you use the inverted one, shifted down. So I guess if you imagine like a cosine wave, maybe minus cosine this, right? Right. And so then what you would end up with is something that goes like this, and then something goes like this, right? And then continues down like that. Right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it flips every time it crosses 0 is the idea.
So it doubles the frequency, but it would probably also leave a large amount of the fundamental, right, in there?
Yeah, halves the frequency, yeah, and leaves a lot of the fundamental. Yeah. But that is not what it seems to be happening on the Solina.
Right.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So okay, yeah, enough geeking out. But overall, I mean, like you said, I'm super happy with the sound, and like you said, it really cuts through, right? I mean, that thin sound has its place in the mix, and you can always use your EQ or whatever to trim out some of the high if you want to, right? But a lot of punch in there. And adding the modulation kind of smooths it out a bit as well.
Mhm.
So it's been super fun, and for me, it has the right number of controls on the front panel. 8 buttons and 4 sliders. It's about all that I can fit in my head.
Yes, so it has the right size user interface. You don't get lost in all of like the parameters and subparameters and everything.
Yeah, or even my little Juno over here. It can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All of these control parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't demo the contrabass. So these two down here, they're the contrabass and the cello are both monophonic. I've been having fun with